At 62, Tom Cruise was supposed to be slowing down. Instead, he's making headlines for all the wrong reasons. While the world watched him dangle from planes and scale buildings, something far more dramatic was happening behind the scenes. The man who built his empire on being invincible just revealed cracks that nobody saw coming. Hollywood's ultimate action hero has always been untouchable. But 2025 brought a series of events that exposed a side of Cruise the public never expected to see. What's really happening to Tom Cruise isn't what anyone predicted. The first bombshell dropped in the form of a 37-year-old Cuban actress who completely blindsided Hollywood. Ana de Armas and Cruise had been spotted together multiple times throughout 2025, but everyone dismissed it as strictly professional. They were collaborating on several high-profile projects, and sources repeatedly insisted their meetings were about potential film deals. That carefully crafted narrative exploded when paparazzi caught them holding hands during a romantic weekend getaway in Vermont. The photos didn't just shock fans because of their 25-year age gap, they exposed something much more calculated happening behind the scenes. Sources close to Cruise revealed he's already orchestrating their entire future together, complete with an ironclad prenuptial agreement that his legal team has been secretly crafting for months. The prenup is reportedly so restrictive and detailed that it makes his previous marriage contracts look like casual handshake deals. Cruise, sitting on an estimated $600 million fortune, has allegedly told his inner circle that he expects de Armas to sign without any drama before he even considers proposing. Those closest to him say he's still haunted by how Katie Holmes blindsided him with their divorce, and he's determined never to be caught off guard again. But here's where the story takes a bizarre twist that has everyone questioning what they thought they knew. Just months before these romantic photos surfaced, multiple entertainment outlets reported that Cruise had taken a sacred vow of celibacy. Industry insiders claimed he was completely done with dating in his 60s, focusing solely on his career and personal growth. The complete contradiction between those reports and his current romance with de Armas has left Hollywood buzzing with speculation about what's really driving his decisions. Some suggest the celibacy claims were deliberate misdirection to keep his relationship with de Armas under wraps, while others believe his feelings for her were powerful enough to break whatever vows he'd made. Either way, the man known for controlling every aspect of his public image just showed a vulnerability nobody expected. While romance headlines grabbed public attention, a much more disturbing story was quietly emerging from movie sets across the globe. Cruise's legendary commitment to performing death-defying stunts nearly ended everything during the brutal filming of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. The biplane sequence that made audiences gasp almost broke his spine, and what viewers saw on screen was just a fraction of the punishment his body endured. Stunt coordinator Wade Eastwood later revealed shocking details about Cruise's condition after particularly dangerous aerial sequences. The 62-year-old action star had to be physically carried off aircraft because his body simply gave out. The most alarming incident involved Cruise clinging to the wing of a small biplane mid-flight, performing stunts that would challenge someone half his age. His hands became so swollen from gripping metal surfaces in freezing temperatures that he couldn't move his fingers properly for days afterward. Medical reports from the set described separated joints, torn muscles, and bruising so severe that makeup couldn't hide the damage. Multiple sources from the production painted a picture of Tom Cruise pushing his aging body far beyond reasonable limits, even by his own extreme standards. What's particularly concerning is how these injuries are accumulating. The man who once bragged about treating his body like a well-maintained car was requiring intensive 10 to 12-hour daily rehabilitation sessions between takes. Physical therapists on set reportedly expressed serious concerns about the long-term damage he was inflicting on himself, warning that his spine and joints couldn't handle much more punishment. Yet Cruise refused to scale back or use stunt doubles for even the most dangerous sequences. His public claims about acting and performing stunts into his 100s started sounding less like confident bravado and more like desperate denial of a body that was visibly breaking down. Medical professionals familiar with the situation privately questioned whether Cruise's obsession with authenticity was becoming a genuine threat to his long-term health and mobility. The end of the Mission Impossible franchise represents far more than just wrapping up a successful film series. It's the conclusion of an era that completely defined Cruise's identity and financial security for nearly 3 decades. The Final Reckoning has been officially confirmed as his absolute final appearance as Ethan Hunt, and industry insiders strongly suggest this decision wasn't entirely voluntary. The physical demands of the role had become genuinely unsustainable for a 62-year-old body, regardless of how fit or determined Cruise remained. Production schedules were repeatedly delayed due to his injuries and lengthy recovery periods, turning what should have been a triumphant farewell into a grueling endurance test that nearly derailed the entire project. Behind the Hollywood glamour, Cruise has been quietly panicking about his uncertain future. The Mission Impossible franchise single-handedly generated over $4 billion worldwide and guaranteed him massive paychecks well into his 60s and potentially beyond. Without this reliable income source, he's facing a completely transformed landscape where his age and increasing physical limitations can't be masked by spectacular action sequences. The mounting pressure to prove his continued relevance led to increasingly reckless behavior on set, creating what those close to him describe as a destructive and completely unsustainable cycle of injury and recovery. Perhaps most telling is how the franchise's conclusion has forced Cruise to confront his own mortality in ways he's never had to before. For decades, he's built his entire brand around seeming invincible, superhuman, and ageless. The Mission Impossible films allowed him to literally defy death on screen while maintaining that illusion of invincibility. Now, without Ethan Hunt's adventures to showcase his physical prowess, Cruise must find entirely new ways to remain relevant in an industry that's notoriously unforgiving to aging action stars. The man who once seemed unstoppable is suddenly fighting a losing battle against time itself, and everyone in Hollywood is watching to see how this story ends. The shadows of Cruise's controversial past continue refusing to stay buried, creating uncomfortable situations that his PR team can't seem to manage. During what should have been a celebratory London premiere of The Final Reckoning, former Scientology members staged a highly visible peaceful protest just feet from the red carpet. While Cruise has spent years trying to distance himself from public discussions about his involvement with the controversial organization, these protesters served as a stark reminder that certain aspects of his past will never truly disappear. The timing couldn't have been worse, disrupting what was meant to be a triumphant career milestone. PR experts have noted that Cruise has deliberately scaled back his public involvement with Scientology since widespread backlash intensified following high-profile defections and abuse allegations. However, critics argue this strategic silence represents too little, too late. Mark Headley, a former high-ranking Scientologist and author of Blown for Good, publicly stated that the more people understood about Cruise's close relationship with current church leader David Miscavige, the less likely they'd be to support his career financially. These aren't just empty threats, they represent a genuine concern about how ongoing Scientology associations could impact his box office appeal and future projects. The situation became even more complicated when Cruise reportedly rejected Donald Trump's invitation to receive a prestigious Kennedy Center honor, citing mysterious scheduling conflicts. Many industry observers interpreted this decision as another attempt to avoid any additional controversy or unwanted attention. The man who once thrived on publicity and seemed to court controversy was now actively trying to avoid certain types of media spotlight. Even his romantic relationship with Ana de Armas has been carefully managed to avoid deeper scrutiny into his personal beliefs and organizational affiliations. What's particularly damaging is how these controversies continue surfacing at crucial career moments, undermining his attempts to reshape his public image. The London protests weren't just about past grievances. They represented an active effort to remind audiences about aspects of Cruise's life that his handlers would prefer remain forgotten. As he tries to transition away from action films and toward more serious dramatic work, these persistent controversies threaten to overshadow any artistic achievements or career reinvention attempts. At 62, Tom Cruise is attempting the most challenging and risky transformation of his entire career, completely reinventing himself as a serious dramatic actor after spending over a decade typecast as Hollywood's premier action hero. His groundbreaking new partnership with Warner Bros. Represents a dramatic strategic pivot away from the guaranteed success of action franchises toward the uncertain world of auteur-driven filmmaking. The first major project under this deal pairs him with acclaimed director Alejandro Iñárritu, marking Cruise's return to working with prestigious filmmakers for the first time since the early 2000s. This collaboration represents either brilliant long-term thinking or a desperate gamble by someone running out of options. Industry experts are divided on whether this career shift can succeed. Cruise hasn't received a single Oscar nomination since his powerful supporting role in 2000's Magnolia, and his last non-action film was the universally panned musical Rock of Ages back in 2012. The Iñárritu project, mysteriously described as a brutal, wild comedy, represents a complete departure from everything Cruise has done recently. Success could revitalize his career, prove his dramatic credentials, and establish him as more than just spectacular stunts and death-defying sequences. However, failure at this stage could signal the beginning of the end for Hollywood's last true movie star. The pressure surrounding this reinvention is absolutely immense. Cruise knows he doesn't have time for multiple attempts or gradual transitions. At 62, this might be his only realistic chance to establish a sustainable career path that doesn't depend on his aging body performing increasingly dangerous stunts. The stakes extend beyond just personal success. They involve his entire legacy and how he'll be remembered. Will he be known as an action star who successfully evolved into a respected dramatic actor, Or will he become a cautionary tale about someone who stayed too long in a young person's game? The financial implications are equally staggering. Action franchises guaranteed him $20–25 million upfront, plus massive back-end deals that often doubled or tripled his earnings. Dramatic films, even successful ones, rarely offer that level of compensation. Cruise is essentially betting his financial future on his ability to prove he's been a serious actor all along, not just an incredibly committed stuntman who happened to be famous. Tom Cruise at 62 isn't the invincible action hero the world thought they knew. He's a complex man fighting simultaneous battles against his own aging body, his controversial past, and an entertainment industry that's rapidly moving beyond the type of movie star he represents. His unexpected romance with Ana de Armas might provide personal fulfillment, but it can't solve the larger existential questions about his professional future and lasting legacy. His increasingly obvious physical limitations are becoming impossible to ignore or explain away. His past Scientology controversies continue haunting every major career moment, and his entire professional identity stands at a crossroads that will ultimately define how history remembers him. The next few years will definitively determine whether Tom Cruise can successfully navigate this treacherous transition into a completely new phase of his career, or whether audiences have just witnessed the final mission of Hollywood's most committed and controversial action star.